Ryan Carter adjusted the stiff collar of his diplomatic uniform as he stepped into the grand hall of the Zyran Empire. The place was massive, built from smooth, dark stone that shimmered under the floating lanterns. Golden banners hung from the ceiling, displaying intricate symbols of the Zyran royal family. Everywhere he looked, alien nobles, tall, elegant, and dressed in shimmering robes, watched him with curiosity, some with thinly veiled disapproval. Humans were still new in the galactic community, and though Earth had recently formed trade agreements with the Zyran, many of their leaders saw humans as inferior, too fragile to stand among warriors. Ryan had been sent as part of a diplomatic delegation to strengthen relations between Earth and the Zyran Empire. He wasn't a politician, just a cultural attaché, a fancy way of saying he had to smile, nod, and make sure humans didn't accidentally offend their hosts. So far, he was failing. The banquet was grand. Plates of strange meats, glowing fruits, and bubbling drinks filled the long tables. Zyran nobles ate in perfect silence, only speaking when necessary. It was a strange sight for Ryan, who was used to laughter and conversation during meals. He had tried to engage in small talk, but each time he was met with cold stares and polite nods. Then he saw her. At the far end of the room, sitting on an elevated throne, was Princess Soraya, the only daughter of High Sovereign Selver, the ruler of the Zyran Empire. Soraya was tall and striking, with midnight blue skin, sharp golden eyes, and a posture that radiated authority. Unlike the other Zyran women who wore flowing robes, she was dressed in a warrior's armor, a gleaming breastplate covering her form, her long, braided silver hair draped over one shoulder. She looked bored. Ryan wasn't sure if he was staring too long, but their eyes met. For a split second, she held his gaze before looking away, utterly unimpressed. Ryan exhaled, trying to focus back on his plate. That was when the trouble started. The ambassador seated next to him, a stern-faced human named Caldwell, nudged Ryan and whispered, "They say the princess has never lost a duel in her life. She's undefeated." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Really? No one has ever beaten her?" Caldwell nodded. "Not even once. The Zyran say she's the strongest warrior of her generation." Ryan, feeling bold and maybe a little reckless, smirked. "Well, sure. It's easy to be undefeated when you've probably never fought anyone stronger than you." The words had barely left his mouth when silence fell across the hall. Ryan felt his stomach drop. What just happened? Slowly, he turned his head. Every Zyran noble was staring at him, their golden eyes wide with disbelief. Some looked horrified. Others looked amused. Ryan barely had time to process the sudden tension before a deep, booming voice shook the hall. "You mock my daughter." Ryan's heart nearly stopped. Sitting at the highest throne, watching him with a cold, calculating gaze, was High Sovereign Selver himself, the Emperor of the Zyran Empire. Ryan had never seen an alien that intimidating before. Selver was massive, at least 7 feet tall, his body covered in ceremonial armor. His piercing golden eyes seemed to see straight through Ryan's soul. Ryan quickly raised his hands. "Wait, I think there's a misunderstanding." Soraya, who had been silent until now, suddenly stood up. "If he believes I have never faced a true challenge," she said, her voice smooth yet deadly, "then perhaps he wishes to test his strength against mine." Ryan's stomach turned to ice. No, wait a second," he blurted out, shaking his head. "That's not what I meant. It was just a joke." The hall remained silent. The Zyran did not understand jokes. Selver leaned forward. "A joke? Then you would not mind proving your words, human." Ryan swallowed hard. The Emperor tilted his head slightly. Or perhaps, he exchanged a look with his advisors before turning back to Ryan. "Since you have spoken with such confidence about my daughter's abilities, there is another way to resolve this. Insult." Ryan didn't like where this was going. Zelver's voice rumbled like distant thunder. You shall marry Princess Soraya. Ryan felt his brain short-circuit. Excuse me. The hall erupted in murmurs. Some Zeren nobles grinned. Others watched with a mix of shock and amusement. Soraya herself blinked, clearly just as surprised. Then she scowled. You expect me to marry this? She gestured toward Ryan like he was some kind of stray animal. Ryan wasn't sure whether to be offended or relieved. Zelver ignored her and looked at Ryan expectantly. You have two choices, human. Face my daughter in battle, or take her as your mate. Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You have got to be kidding me. Ryan Carter stood frozen in the grand hall of the Zeren Empire, his mind racing. He had just mocked the undefeated alien princess, and now her father, the Emperor, had given him an insane choice. Fight her in battle or marry her. Neither option sounded good. The hall remained silent, every golden-eyed noble watching him with interest. Some whispered among themselves, while others smiled, clearly entertained by the situation. The Zeren loved a good challenge, and to them, this was just another spectacle. Princess Soraya was still standing, her sharp gaze fixed on Ryan, arms crossed over her armored chest. She looked more annoyed than anything else. Ryan exhaled slowly. Maybe there was still a way out of this. Your Majesty, he said carefully, trying to sound as respectful as possible. I think this is just a big misunderstanding. I didn't mean any disrespect. It was just a joke. The Emperor, High Sovereign Zelver, stared at him without expression. His gaze was unreadable, sharp, calculating. Then he leaned forward slightly. The Zeren do not joke about honor. Ryan winced. Great. Of course, they don't. Soraya clicked her tongue. Father, this is ridiculous. I have no interest in marrying the human. Ryan immediately raised a hand. And I have no interest in marrying an alien princess. The hall gasped in unison. Ryan blinked. Did I say something wrong again? A Zeren noble stepped forward, shaking his head in mock pity, refusing a royal match. How bold. Either he is truly foolish, or he does not know what an honor this is. Ryan gave him an exasperated look. How is this an honor? I don't even know her. Another noble chuckled. You insulted her, human. This is the only way to restore balance. A duel, or a union. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, feeling trapped. All right, let's say I choose neither. Zelver's eyes darkened slightly. Then you insult the throne. The consequences would not be pleasant. Ryan didn't like the way he said that. Caldwell, the human ambassador, finally stepped in, whispering urgently, Ryan, I don't think you understand. The Zeren take honor very seriously. If you reject both choices, they might see it as a direct insult to their entire empire. Ryan groaned internally. So he had two choices: fight a warrior princess who had never lost a battle, or marry her. Soraya sighed, clearly just as frustrated as he was. This is a waste of time, she muttered. Let's just get the duel over with. Ryan's head snapped toward her. Excuse me. She met his gaze, unimpressed. You are weak. The fight will be over quickly. Ryan blinked, then scoffed. Wow, okay, thanks for the confidence boost. She simply shrugged, unconcerned. It is the truth. Ryan turned back to the Emperor. Your Majesty, no offense, but don't you think a fight between me and your daughter is unfair? I mean, I'm just a human. I don't have super strength or combat training. She'd probably break every bone in my body. Soraya smirked. You are smarter than you look. Ryan ignored her. So maybe there's a third option. Zelver tilted his head. A third option? Ryan nodded eagerly. Yes. Like maybe I do some kind of trial or test to prove I didn't mean any offense. Something that doesn't involve fighting or marriage. The Emperor remained silent for a moment, considering. The hall held its breath. Then he smiled. A slow, knowing smile that made Ryan feel very, very nervous. A trial, you say? Selvar mused. An interesting suggestion. But the Zeren trials are not for the weak. Ryan winced. He had a bad feeling about this. Soraya rolled her eyes. Father, you cannot be serious. Zelvar ignored her. Very well, human. You may prove yourself in a trial. If you succeed, the insult will be forgotten. Ryan let out a relieved breath. Oh, thank God. The Emperor's gaze hardened. But if you fail, you will marry my daughter immediately. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. Wait. What? The hall erupted in murmurs and laughter. Some nobles grinned, clearly entertained. Caldwell groaned. Ryan, you just made things worse. Ryan's stomach dropped. What kind of trial are we talking about? Zelvar's smile remained cold and amused. A test of strength, endurance, and wisdom. You will face 3 challenges, each proving your worth. Ryan forced a weak smile. And what happens if I pass? Zelvar's expression grew serious. Then you are free to leave, with your honor restored. Ryan turned to Soraya. And you're okay with this? She narrowed her eyes. It makes no difference to me. You will fail. Ryan sighed. Wow, I love the support. Zelvar rose from his throne. Very well. The trial begins tomorrow at sunrise. You will have 1 night to prepare. Ryan felt like screaming. 1 night. He had no idea what kind of monstrous alien trials he was about to face. As the Emperor dismissed the court, Ryan rubbed his temples. What did I get myself into? Soraya smirked as she walked past him. Try not to die, human. Ryan groaned. Yeah, easier said than done. Ryan Carter lay awake in the guest chambers of the Zeren Palace, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced, replaying the events of the banquet over and over again. Just a few hours ago, he had been enjoying an ordinary diplomatic event. Now he was set to undergo an alien trial, one that could either clear his name or force him into an unwanted marriage with a warrior princess who clearly didn't like him. He sighed heavily. How did things go so wrong so fast? A soft chime echoed through the room, signaling dawn. The trial would begin soon. No time for regrets now. The Grand Arena. Ryan stood in the Zeren battle arena, a massive stone coliseum surrounded by towering walls. Thousands of Zeren spectators filled the stands, eager to witness the fate of the insulting human. Some looked amused. Others bet on how quickly he would fail. At the center of the arena stood Emperor Zelvar, his golden eyes watching Ryan with interest. Beside him, Princess Soraya sat with her arms crossed, looking as unimpressed as ever. Ryan took a deep breath as the Emperor raised a hand, silencing the crowd. The human has chosen the trial of 3 challenges, Zelvar announced, his voice echoing. He will be tested in strength, endurance, and wisdom. If he succeeds, his offense shall be forgotten. If he fails, the Emperor's gaze flickered toward Soraya, who smirked. Ryan swallowed hard. No pressure. Zelvar gestured toward a group of Zeren warriors standing at the edge of the arena. Let the first trial begin. Trial 1. The Test of Strength. A heavy stone door rumbled open, revealing a massive creature. Ryan's eyes widened as a hulking beast with 4 muscular arms and dark, armored skin stomped into the arena. It had glowing red eyes, sharp claws, and tusks that curved outward from its lower jaw. Ryan took a step back. Okay, that's not fair. Soraya's voice rang out from her seat. This is the Gorak beast. It is a test of raw strength. You must survive against it for 5 minutes. Ryan groaned. Just 5 minutes. That's like asking a paper bag to survive a hurricane. A loud horn blasted. The Gorak roared in charge. Ryan barely had time to react before he dove to the side, narrowly avoiding being crushed by the beast's enormous fists. The ground shook as the creature's attack left a crater in the arena floor. The crowd roared with excitement. Ryan scrambled to his feet, panting. He had no weapons, No armor, no training. How was he supposed to last 5 minutes against this thing? The beast lunged again, swinging one of its massive arms toward him. Ryan had no choice but to duck and roll, avoiding another devastating blow. Soraya's voice called from the stands. "Stop running. Face it." Ryan shot her an annoyed look. Easy for her to say. She wasn't the one about to be turned into paste. But then, he noticed something. The Gorak moved slow after each attack. It was strong, but not fast. Maybe he didn't need to fight it. Maybe he just needed to outlast it. Ryan switched to strategy. Instead of trying to attack, he focused on dodging, weaving, and using the creature's own strength against it. Every time it charged, Ryan sidestepped, letting it smash into the stone walls or trip over itself. The crowd gasped as Ryan lasted minute after minute without a single hit. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the final horn blew. Ryan collapsed to his knees, completely out of breath. He had done it. He had survived. Xelver raised a hand. The human has passed the first trial. The crowd cheered, some even clapping in respect. Ryan let out a weak laugh. 1 down, 2 to go. Trial 2. The test of endurance. After a short break, Ryan was led to a high, narrow platform that stretched across a deep pit. Soraya stepped forward, arms crossed. "This trial is simple. You must walk across the bridge while carrying the Zyran battle stone." Ryan frowned. That doesn't sound so bad. Then a warrior dropped a boulder-sized stone at his feet. It was twice the size of his torso. Ryan's jaw dropped. "You're kidding me." The Emperor nodded. "Begin." Ryan gritted his teeth and heaved the massive stone into his arms. His muscles screamed in protest. It was so heavy he could barely breathe. Step by step, he moved forward. The bridge swayed beneath him, forcing him to balance carefully. Sweat dripped down his face. His legs shook. His arms burned. Halfway across, he nearly collapsed, but he caught himself at the last second. Soraya watched him closely. Something in her golden eyes shifted, just slightly. Ryan took one final step and crossed the bridge. He collapsed, gasping for air. Xelver smiled approvingly. He has passed the second trial. The crowd cheered louder this time. Soraya studied Ryan, her expression unreadable. Maybe he wasn't as weak as she thought. Trial 3. The test of wisdom. Ryan barely had time to recover before being led to the final test, a massive stone puzzle filled with strange alien symbols. Xelver gestured toward it. "To pass, you must solve the riddle of the Zyran Gate." Ryan stared at the puzzle. It had dozens of moving pieces, each marked with an unknown language. Soraya spoke quietly. Even Zyran warriors struggle with this test. Ryan smirked. "Well, good thing I love puzzles." As he studied the markings, he realized something. The symbols weren't random. They followed a pattern. One by one, he moved the pieces into place. The crowd grew silent. Then, CLITK. The gate opened. Ryan grinned weakly. The crowd erupted. Xelver stood. The human has passed all 3 trials. Ryan barely processed the words before Soraya stepped forward, staring at him with new eyes. For the first time, she looked impressed. Ryan smirked, still panting. "So, do I still have to marry you?" Soraya hesitated, just for a second. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. Ryan Carter sat on the cold stone floor of the Zyran Grand Arena, still trying to catch his breath. His entire body ached, his muscles burned, and he was pretty sure he had bruises in places he didn't even know existed. But despite all of that, he had done it. He had passed all 3 trials. The crowd roared, a mix of cheers and murmurs spreading through the stands. The Zyran, who had once looked at him with nothing but amusement or disdain, now seemed genuinely impressed. And then there was Soraya. The warrior princess stood a few feet away, arms crossed over her chest, golden eyes locked onto him with an intense expression. It wasn't the usual look of annoyance or boredom she had given him before. No, this was something else. Respect. Ryan blinked at her. I know I should probably enjoy this moment, but does this mean I don't have to marry you now? A small smirk tugged at the corner of Soraya's lips, but she quickly hid it, returning to her usual neutral expression. You have proven yourself worthy, human. The insult is forgiven. Ryan let out a long sigh of relief. Oh, thank God. The Emperor, High Sovereign Scifi, rose from his throne, his deep voice echoing through the arena. The human has shown great strength, endurance, and wisdom. He has earned the right to leave with his honor intact. Ryan grinned, finally feeling the weight of the situation lift off his shoulders. He had survived. He wasn't going to be forced into a political marriage. He was free. But then, Scifi's next words made his heart stop. Unless my daughter wishes otherwise. Ryan froze. Wait. What? All eyes turned to Soraya. The princess was silent, staring at Ryan with an expression that was hard to read. The crowd held its breath, waiting for her response. Ryan quickly waved his hands. Whoa, 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 hold on. I thought I was free. She doesn't have to. Soraya sighed, shaking her head. You talk too much, human. Ryan frowned. I just fought a giant monster, carried a stone the size of a small car, and solved an alien puzzle in record time. I think I've earned the right to talk. A flicker of amusement flashed across Soraya's face, but she didn't let it linger. She turned to her father. He is not as weak as I first thought. Ryan raised an eyebrow. I'll take that as a compliment. Soraya's gaze flickered back to him. There was something different in the way she looked at him now. Not as an enemy, not as a nuisance, but as something else. Scifi studied his daughter carefully. Then the decision is yours. The tension in the arena rose. The nobles leaned forward, waiting for her answer. Ryan's heartbeat pounded in his chest. He had no idea what she was going to say. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Soraya took a step forward. I will not force him into marriage, she said. Ryan exhaled loudly. Thank you. But I challenge him to stay. Ryan's relief vanished. Wait. What? Soraya crossed her arms. You have proven yourself in the trials, but that does not mean you understand our ways. Stay in the Ziran Empire for 1 month. Learn our culture. Train with our warriors. Then, you may leave, if you still wish to. Ryan's mouth opened and closed. So, you're saying I have a choice now? Soraya nodded. Yes, a true choice. Scifi raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The crowd whispered among themselves, surprised by the unexpected offer. Ryan stared at Soraya, trying to figure out what was going on in her head. Why was she giving him a choice now? Was it a test, a trick, or was she genuinely interested? He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. 1 month, huh? Soraya's lips twitched. Are you afraid, human? Ryan smirked. After everything I just survived. Not even a little. The crowd erupted into cheers, excited by the new development. Scifi nodded approvingly, and Soraya, well, for the first time since they met, she actually looked pleased. Ryan grinned to himself. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Ryan Carter stood in the royal training grounds of the Ziran Empire, sweat dripping down his face as he struggled to catch his breath. His arms felt like lead, his legs like jelly, and every muscle in his body screamed in pain. Across from him, Princess Soraya stood tall, barely even breathing hard, her golden eyes sharp as ever. She held a Ziran training staff, its sleek black metal glinting in the sunlight. Ryan groaned, rubbing his sore shoulder. You know, when you said I should train with your warriors, I thought that meant them, not you. Soraya smirked. You fought in the trials, human. If you are to stay here for a month, you should learn properly. She twirled her staff with expert precision, stepping forward. Now stop complaining and fight. Ryan exhaled and raised his own training staff, a much heavier version of what she had. The Zyran weapons were nothing like the lightweight practice sticks he had used back on Earth. This thing felt like swinging a metal pipe. He charged forward, gripping the staff with both hands. He swung at Soraya's side, but she sidestepped with ease and knocked his weapon away like it was nothing. Before he could react, she swept his legs out from under him. Ryan hit the ground hard. The watching Zyran warriors chuckled, some shaking their heads. Soraya looked down at him, unimpressed. Pathetic. Ryan groaned. I felt that one in my soul. She sighed, offering a hand. Get up. Ryan grabbed it and pulled himself to his feet. His entire body hurt, but he refused to give up. He had survived the trials, and now he had to prove himself again. He readjusted his grip on the staff. All right, let's go again. Soraya raised an eyebrow. You are stubborn. Ryan smirked. And you're just figuring that out now. She shook her head, but there was a hint of amusement in her expression. The days of training. The next 2 weeks were nothing but training, sparring, and pain. Ryan woke up before sunrise every morning and trained until the stars filled the sky. The Zyran warriors pushed him to his limits, making him run across the hot desert fields, lift heavy battle stones, and fight in mock duels. And of course, Soraya was his main instructor. She never went easy on him. She knocked him down at least 100 times a day, corrected his stances, and pointed out every single mistake. But Ryan didn't quit. At first, the Zyran warriors laughed at him. They saw him as a weak human who had no business training among them. But as the days went on, they noticed something. He kept getting up. Every time he fell, he stood up again. No complaints, no excuses, and slowly he got better. By the end of the second week, Ryan wasn't falling as much. His movements were sharper, his reflexes quicker. He was still nowhere near Soraya's level, but he could hold his own. Even she started to notice the difference. One evening, after a long day of training, Ryan sat on a stone bench, wiping sweat from his face. Soraya approached, arms crossed. You are improving, she admitted. Ryan chuckled. Wow, a compliment. Should I write this down? She rolled her eyes but didn't deny it. For the first time since they met, their interactions weren't just arguments. There was still banter, but it wasn't filled with hostility anymore. It was something else. A night of truth. One evening, after another grueling session, Ryan found himself walking along the palace balcony. The city below was lit by glowing lanterns, and the twin moons of Zyran hung in the sky. Soraya was there too, standing near the edge, looking out over the city. Ryan leaned against the railing. You know, I never really asked. Why are you so determined to be the best warrior? Soraya was silent for a moment before answering. In the Zyran Empire, strength is everything. Weakness is not tolerated. If I am to take my father's place one day, I must be stronger than anyone else. Ryan nodded. So that's why you train so hard. She turned her gaze to him. Yes, I cannot afford to fail. Ryan watched her carefully. For the first time, she didn't seem like the unshakable warrior princess. There was something more beneath the surface. You ever think about what you want? He asked. Not just what's expected of you. Soraya's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't look away. Duty comes first. Ryan sighed. That's not what I asked. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked back at the city, her expression unreadable. Ryan let the silence sit for a moment before smirking. Well, if it helps, I think you'd make a great leader. Soraya turned back to him, surprised. You do? Ryan nodded. Yeah, you're tough. You don't back down. And you actually care about your people, even if you pretend not to. She studied him for a long time, as if seeing him differently. Then, to his shock, she smiled. A real smile. It was small, barely there, but it was genuine. Ryan blinked. Did you just smile? Someone call the historians. Soraya scoffed and punched his arm. Not too hard this time. Do not push your luck, human. Ryan laughed, and for the first time since arriving in the Zarin Empire, he felt like maybe he wasn't just an outsider anymore. Ryan Carter stood in the center of the Zarin training grounds, gripping a Zarin combat staff in both hands. The weight of it felt familiar now, no longer the awkward burden it had been when he first started training. He had grown stronger, faster, and more skilled, but he wasn't foolish. He still knew he was nowhere near Soraya's level. And yet here he was, facing off against the undefeated warrior princess herself. The duel had been her idea. You have trained well, Soraya had told him the previous evening. But training means nothing unless you prove it in battle. Ryan had sighed, rubbing his tired arms. And let me guess, you're the one I have to prove it to. She had smirked. Who else? Now, the moment had arrived. The crowd of Zarin warriors gathered around the arena, eager to see how much the human had improved. Some still doubted him, while others, those who had watched him train every day, were genuinely curious. At the top of the viewing platform, High Sovereign Selvar sat on his throne, observing with an expression of quiet interest. Soraya stood across from Ryan, her stance strong and balanced, her golden eyes locked onto him. Unlike the playful banter they usually exchange, her gaze now held only focus. This wasn't just a test. This was a warrior's challenge. Ryan rolled his shoulders, trying to shake off his nerves. All right, princess, let's get this over with. A Zarin official raised his hand and called out, Begin. The duel begins. Ryan barely had time to react before Soraya exploded forward, her staff moving like a lightning-fast blur. He barely managed to block the first strike, but the force of it sent him stumbling backward. His arms shook from the impact. She's not holding back. Soraya didn't give him a second to breathe. She struck again. Left, right, downward smash. Ryan dodged, blocked, and ducked. But every movement felt like he was barely surviving, rather than fighting back. The watching warriors laughed and whispered among themselves. To them, this fight was over before it even started. Ryan gritted his teeth. No, not like this. He had come too far to just roll over and accept defeat. He watched Soraya's movements carefully, trying to find a pattern. She was faster, stronger, and more experienced, but she was also predictable in her confidence. She expected him to just defend, so he did the one thing she didn't expect. He attacked. Soraya lunged at him with a downward strike, and at the last second, Ryan sidestepped, swinging his staff low, aiming for her legs. The move caught her off guard. She barely dodged, but Ryan saw the flicker of surprise in her eyes. The crowd gasped. Ryan smirked. Didn't see that coming, did you? Soraya grinned, and for the first time in the fight, her expression changed, not as an unbeatable warrior, but as someone who was actually enjoying this. Good, she said, adjusting her stance. Now let's see if you can keep up. A battle worth watching. The fight continued, but this time, Ryan was no longer just on the defensive. He still wasn't stronger than Soraya, but he was thinking ahead, adapting. He dodged instead of blocking to avoid taking heavy blows. He used his smaller size and quicker footwork to move around her. And every time she expected him to back down, he pushed forward. The crowd's murmurs turned to cheers. Ryan wasn't winning, but he also wasn't losing. Soraya's strikes came faster, her golden eyes shining with challenge and excitement. She wasn't just fighting a weaker opponent anymore. She was fighting someone who was pushing her. For the first time, in a long time, she was having fun. Ryan ducked under a sweeping strike, twisted his body, and landed a clean hit to Soraya's shoulder. The crowd erupted in shock. Ryan stepped back, blinking. Wait, did I just hit you? Soraya touched her shoulder and let out a short laugh. You did. Ryan grinned. Huh, I kinda like this sport now. Soraya twirled her staff. Then let's see if you can land another. Ryan's smile faded. Oh, that was probably a mistake. The final exchange. Soraya came at him with full force, and Ryan knew he wouldn't last much longer. His arms ached, his legs burned, and his breath came in short gasps. One more hit, and he was done. But before Soraya could deliver the final blow, she suddenly halted, her staff hovering just inches from Ryan's chest. The crowd went silent. Soraya studied him carefully, then smiled, not a mocking smile, not a smirk. A genuine smile. She lowered her staff. I yield. Ryan's brain short-circuited. Excuse me. Soraya tilted her head. You heard me. The entire arena erupted into loud whispers. Princess Soraya had never lost a duel. Not even once. Ryan gaped at her. Wait, wait, wait. You can't just. I didn't win. Soraya's golden eyes held his. No, but you fought well. You have proven yourself. Ryan felt his heart pound. The weight of what just happened hit him all at once. He hadn't won, but he had earned her respect. High Sovereign Selver stood, his booming voice echoing through the arena. The human has faced the warrior's challenge. He has shown determination, skill, and resilience. The Emperor's gaze flickered to his daughter, a knowing glint in his eyes. The trial is over. Ryan exhaled sharply, still stunned. Soraya extended a hand toward him. You lasted longer than anyone expected. You deserve this victory, even if it's not in the way you imagined. Ryan looked at her, then down at her offered hand. Slowly, he gripped it. The crowd cheered. Ryan smirked, shaking his head. You're impossible, you know that. Soraya chuckled. And yet, you're still here. Ryan laughed. Yeah, I guess I am. For the first time, he realized something. Maybe he didn't want to leave after all. Ryan Carter sat on a stone bench in the royal courtyard, a warm breeze brushing past his face. The sounds of the Zirin city, distant chatter, the hum of alien crafts, the rhythmic beat of ceremonial drums floated through the air. It had been a few days since the duel with Princess Soraya, and though his body was still sore from the grueling training and intense fight, he felt an unexpected sense of peace. He had proven himself, not just in the trials, but also in the eyes of the Zirin people. For the first time since stepping foot on their alien soil, Ryan felt like he wasn't an outsider anymore. He was still human, yes, but no longer dismissed as weak or unworthy. The realization made him smile. Maybe he could belong here after all. A quiet conversation. Enjoying the view. Ryan turned his head and saw Soraya approaching, her armor gleaming faintly in the sunlight. She carried herself with her usual confidence, but there was something different in her gaze, something softer. He smiled. Yeah, it's peaceful. Nice change from getting knocked around every day. Soraya chuckled, crossing her arms as she stood beside him. You handled yourself well. Better than I expected. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Another compliment. I must be dreaming. She rolled her eyes. Don't let it go to your head, human. He laughed. I wouldn't dare. They stood in silence for a moment, both gazing out at the sprawling city. The twin moons of Zirin were visible even in the daylight, their pale outlines hovering in the sky. Ryan glanced at her. You're not what I expected, you know. Soraya frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean, when I first got here, I thought you were just some cold, arrogant princess who looked down on everyone. She raised an eyebrow. And now? Ryan shrugged. Now I see you're a cold, arrogant princess who actually cares about her people. Soraya laughed, a genuine laugh. At least you got the cares part right. Ryan leaned back, resting his hands behind him. I think I finally get it. You're not just trying to prove yourself to everyone else. You're trying to prove something to yourself, aren't you? Her smile faded slightly. She didn't respond right away, her golden eyes scanning the city below. Strength is everything here, she said quietly. If I'm not the strongest, if I can't protect this empire, then what am I? Ryan shook his head. You're more than just your strength, Soraya. You're smart, determined, and yeah, maybe a little intimidating. She shot him a look, and he grinned. But you're also someone who wants to do the right thing. That's what really makes you strong. Soraya's gaze softened, her posture relaxing just slightly. She turned to face him fully. You're different, Ryan. Different from anyone I've met. He smirked. Is that a compliment? She sighed, a small smile tugging at her lips. Don't push it. The Emperor's decision. Later that evening, Ryan was summoned to the Grand Hall. The towering stone pillars and glowing golden banners were just as imposing as the first time he entered, but now he felt calmer. High Sovereign Selver sat on his throne, his golden eyes studying Ryan carefully. Soraya stood at his side, her arms folded but her expression neutral. The human has fulfilled his obligations, Selver announced, his deep voice carrying through the hall. He has faced our trials, proven his worth, and earned our respect. The gathered nobles murmured among themselves, some nodding in agreement. Ryan straightened, keeping his expression serious. Selver's gaze settled on him. You are free to leave, Ryan Carter. You may return to your people with your honor restored. Ryan blinked. He had been waiting for those words for weeks. He should have felt relieved, thrilled. Instead, he hesitated. Soraya glanced at him, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Ryan cleared his throat. I appreciate the offer, Your Majesty, and I'm grateful for everything I've learned here. The Emperor tilted his head slightly. But, Ryan exhaled. But I'd like to stay, for a little longer. The hall fell silent. Even Soraya looked surprised. Ryan shrugged. I've come to respect this place, your people. I feel like I've just started to understand what it means to be part of something bigger. If you'll have me, I'd like to keep learning, keep growing. Selver regarded him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. Very well. You may stay. The nobles murmured again, and Soraya's gaze lingered on him, her expression softening. A new path forward. Over the following weeks, Ryan continued training, sparring, and learning the ways of the Zerrin. The once laughing warriors now welcomed him as an equal, sharing their techniques and stories. Soraya remained his toughest teacher, but their relationship had shifted. They still bantered, still challenged each other, but now there was a mutual respect, a quiet understanding that went deeper than words. One evening, after a long day of training, Soraya joined him on the balcony once more. You're different from any human I've met, she said softly. Ryan smiled. And you're different from any alien I've met. She glanced at him, her golden eyes shining faintly in the moonlight. You could have left, she said. You chose to stay. Ryan nodded. I did. Why? He thought for a moment before answering. Because I belong here now. A small smile touched her lips. Maybe you do. Ryan leaned against the railing, gazing out at the twin moons of Zerrin. For the first time since he arrived, he felt at home.